All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for jumping on today. We have some really cool stuff that we're going to go over, but I'm going to give Steve just a few minutes to kind of introduce and give us some updates on what's going on, and then we'll dive into it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Giving me a few minutes is dangerous anytime. I just want you to know that. So I'm gonna keep it short. Before most of you jumped on this morning, Gordon and Jeremy and myself and others, my wife, we're all talking about the exciting things that are happening based on the discussions we're having with the company and what we are seeing in a test mode. And without being able to go into that and tell you what we're doing, we know everything's real. I said to Gordon, I go, based on how long we've been waiting for this, we run the risk of people saying, hey, I just don't know if this is real. But the fact that we're all on a test program trying these products and seeing them live is very, very exciting. And of course, Jeremy, one of our great leaders, is people we depend on for this critical feedback for everything that we're looking at unveiling very soon. And so he's right in the middle of it. And there's nobody better to do training because he sees what's going on behind the scenes. He sees what's going to come out here in the future. He knows what's been in the past. And there's only one direction we're all facing, Jeremy, and we're heading forward with that. So with that, I'm just going to turn the time over to our illustrious leader, Jeremy Jenkins, to take it away, brother.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay, well, so let's go ahead and dive into the topic of the day, which is Web3. Okay, so a lot of people still, fuzzy around the edges about what is blockchain, what is Web3, what is all this stuff we're talking about, and the future of rewards and stuff. So I put this together in a way that will hopefully simplify it for everybody and help us all understand how Web3, aka blockchain, aka nodes and rewards and all that, can help make the world a better place, one transaction at a time. Okay, so of course we got to state the obvious. Disclaimer, we're not talking about investments. We're not talking about guarantees of income. We're not talking about, hey, jump in here and you'll be a millionaire overnight, anything like that, right? These are just amazing products and services that we're talking about, and there is a financial opportunity attached to them through your own efforts and talents and abilities and stuff. But we're not talking about any kind of, hey, just get rich quick. Okay, so that being said, we need to understand a few things. The first thing that's the most important is that the financial system is changing, right? All through history, we've seen there's cycles, there's stuff that happened in macro history, money, and why preparation matters. And it's not about hype or fear. Okay, I don't want anybody to get scared. I'm not saying that the world is ending or anything like that. But if you understand history, money, cycles, and all those things, then you can prepare, right? If you just do your due diligence, you understand how money works, then you can position yourself and be prepared for what's to come. So we know there are several enemies of wealth, right? But the biggest one of all is inflation. That's the worst. Okay, so if we can protect ourselves against inflation, for the most part, others would be taxes and just other stuff that's going on in the world. But inflation, that's the key thing. And the problem is bigger than crypto. Okay, this is a macro problem. Markets don't move randomly. They don't. They follow monetary policy, right? So government stuff that happens. They follow debt cycles. And most important, they follow human behavior, because human nature is what it is, right? And people tend to be greedy, unfortunately. And so, and people, maybe not, it's not just greed, but it's just wanting to protect yourself. It's wanting to have better things in life, all that things. So if you don't understand the systems, then a lot of times you'll react emotionally instead of logically. And that can get you in trouble. But if you understand the system, you understand what's happening, where things are, heading and where things are going, then you can prepare. Okay. And if you're prepared, then you'll don't have to fear. Everything will be good. So let's just understand a little bit of the history and where we're at and why. Back in the early 1900s, it was the rise of centralized power. Literally everything started to change with industrialization. At the beginning of the 1900s was all about becoming, the industries became monopolies, okay? And all the financial power began to concentrate itself into fewer hands. It is very different than the 1800s and before. So in 1913, what happened? Well, there was something called the Federal Reserve that was created, right? And when that happened, wealth started to flow upward instead of outward. Okay, just a major shift. And why? What happened? Well, before 1913, it was a little bit chaotic. There was a chaotic mix of currencies, including state banknotes. There was gold, there was silver, there was national banknotes, and more. It was crazy. There was all kinds of different money out there. Okay. So to kind of organize it and get some control and some stability under that, the United States gave control of the money to what they call the Federal Reserve, right? They created a centralized bank to try and stabilize the economy and have one single currency. And the intention was good, right? And everybody loved it. And, all the, it passed the Senate and the Congress and the president. They all did it, and because it sounded good, because it was messy. Everything was messy, and it was like, oh yeah, let's have one single currency. It'll be great. So it was good in some ways, but it was bad in others, because what happened from that moment on was money could be created out of thin air, right? Backed by debt and not by value. Okay. So then after that, it kind of went on and things were okay. But then in 1971, then this was the next phase of this, and it was when Nixon ended the gold standard. And this was the final break from sound money, right? Because before that, every dollar was still tied to gold. So you knew, okay, they got gold over in Fort Knox, and so it's guaranteed if I want to go turn in my paper dollars, I can trade those in for actual gold, and there was a 1-to-1 ratio, all that stuff. But after 1971, that went away, and the dollar became what we call fiat currency. So money printing was no longer constrained. Okay, they call it quantitative easing. That's the technical term for it. Okay, and it sounds like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great. But really, what it is, they're just printing more dollars. So every new dollar created makes new debt, and inflation becomes unavoidable because it's not tied to anything other than just trust, right? So what happens when that goes on? Savers lose purchasing power. If you just put money in, under your mattress, or dollar bills somewhere, or you put them just in a traditional savings account, it's losing value because more and more dollars are being printed, and so just over time you lose, right? The dollar goes down in value, but asset owners benefit. Okay, so this is what we're talking about being prepared and positioning yourself. If you can own assets that don't lose their value, then you're going to be okay. So why blockchain? Because then the next thing that happened was, because of all of that, it just kind of compounded and built and snowballed. So in 2008, we had another financial crisis, right? Crypto was the response to that. It's not a trend, it was a response. That's when Bitcoin first started out. And after that, all kinds of other coins, right, that we know of. But it was based on this idea of a fixed supply, not a central authority. Okay, so you can see my graphic here. Back in 1980, $20 could buy you a whole basket of groceries, right? But by 2022, and you can see it's not even a tenth of what you could get back in 1980. But one Bitcoin, on the other hand, in 2011 would buy you a basket of groceries, but by 2030, one Bitcoin could buy you a house, right? Why? Because it's deflationary. It's a fixed supply. So, and not only that, but it's transparent and verifiable and all those things. That's what blockchain does, is it makes things transparent, immutable. You can't change it. You can't manipulate it. You can't mess with it. And it's a set supply. So you can't just go print more Bitcoins. Okay. It doesn't work that way. So crypto exists because trust in traditional systems is breaking. And cycles repeat because human nature doesn't change, right? So preparation is the advantage. That's the key. If we can learn history, we can understand money, we can diversify intelligently and avoid emotional decisions. Now we're going to be able to protect ourselves and be okay in the future. So what is blockchain anyway, right? What is this whole decentralization, what we call Web3? Well, Web 1 was the beginning of the internet. Okay, and we've talked a lot about this when the internet was first introduced back in the 1990s, and people thought it was a fad or a trend or something. You know, there were those that thought it would last a few years and go away. They couldn't understand it, but now we know, we know better, right? It's something that we can't even live without. Like if we lose our phone for even 30 minutes, we're freaking out. Like, I can't live without my phone. So things have changed drastically since the 1990s, but Web 1.0 was a read-only web. It was basically, there was a webmaster, created a website, and you could read the website. That was it. It was a way to get information out digitally, which is great. Okay, replace newspapers and all those things, but that was it. You couldn't really interact, right? You couldn't really comment or post or any of those things. So it was like a library. You just read the books, but you can't write in them. Okay. Well, then over time, we started to have participation. So Web 2.0 was now the read and write internet. Okay. So from about 2005-ish until now, what that meant was you could participate, right? You like Facebook, so social media, right? Instagram, YouTube, Google, all those different things where you can now post videos and pictures and comment things and all that stuff. So we interact now using the internet. Okay. But here's the catch. You don't own your stuff. The company does. When you post a picture or video or wherever on YouTube or Facebook or anywhere, guess what? That big tech company now owns that. They own it, not you anymore. Okay. And they can do with it what they want. They can monetize it. They can, do the research on your data and send advertising to you, all that stuff. Okay. Because they own it now. So kind of like a school notebook owned by a teacher where you can write in it, but the teacher can also erase it or take it away. Right. So Web3, introducing ownership. Right? That's the difference. It's reading and writing and owning it. And that's where it becomes kind of, like mind-blowing. People can't understand, how do I own the internet? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. How can I own this? Right? But it's true. You can have read and write and own participation now. So it's not a single company that's in control. You control your money, your digital items, your identity. Okay, all these different things. So it's like your own notebook that no one can take away from you. It's really, really powerful. And that's, if we can just get our minds wrapped around this idea that you can literally own a piece of the internet, wow, you're going to be well positioned for what's coming. So it is the future. But let's talk about what it's not. Okay, Web3 is not a get rich quick scheme. It's not just a single product, right? It's not magic money that prints itself. It's not, a replacement that happens overnight. Okay. What it is new internet rules. It's ownership instead of permission. It's fewer middlemen and more control for users. Okay. So that is the advantage. And that's the way the world is going. And we have the opportunity and the privilege to be part of this in the very beginning. So we can position ourselves and take the most advantage of it. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between blockchain versus crypto versus tokens, because this is really important, right? People mix these up a lot. So here's the simple version. Blockchain itself is the technology, right? It's a digital notebook where everybody has a copy. Okay, so if you have a node, you have a copy of all the transactions, all the blocks, all the data that's being written. All of us, we all share all those blocks and we have a copy of it. So that's our own digital notebook. And no one can erase the pages. That's the thing is once those blocks are written, they're done. Nobody can go back and edit them or change them. It's set in stone. Okay. And pages are added just one at a time, right? Every few minutes or so, a new block gets added that has new information, new transactions, new records. And it's kind of like a shared class notebook where cheating is now impossible. Now, what is cryptocurrency? So, cryptocurrency is the money that lives on the blockchain. Okay, so that could be XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Node token, right? Now, what are tokens? Why are tokens different from cryptocurrency? It's because they are special coins that have a specific job to do, right? So they could represent ownership, they could represent tickets, okay? They could represent access to something or just points, right? Reward points, okay? So lots of different ways that the tokens can be used up beyond just a store of value, beyond just being money. All right. So here's the big idea, right? Decentralization and ownership. The old way, when everything was centralized, well, there's still a lot of examples of being centralized, but it's one company, one organization, the government or a bank or whatever, and they decide who gets access, they decide what gets removed, and they decide what you're allowed to do. For example, a bank that controls your money or a social media that controls your posts, right? And can erase your posts or block you or ban you or whatever. But in a decentralized Web3 way, there is no single boss. Rules are written in code, so they can't be manipulated, right? The same rules for everybody, okay? And that, for example, your wallet is your wallet. No one can freeze it without the rules allowing it. So there's no preferential treatment. There's no, oh, I'm a big famous movie star, so I get better access than somebody else. No, all of that goes away. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. Everybody gets to follow the same rules, and it's awesome. All right, so why institutions are paying attention? This is another big thing, right? Because you think that why would a big company want to be decentralized? Right? Maybe they wouldn't enjoy that, but they're seeing the future of this. They're seeing that people are recognizing it, and it's one of those things where they're going, okay, we've tried to fight against this, but now we're seeing that it's being adopted, so we better just do it, right? And so just like anything else that's been disrupted, from Netflix disrupting Blockbuster Video and all these different things, Uber disrupting the taxi industry, right? Of course, they didn't like it, but it was inevitable. And so now these big companies are starting to adopt it. Okay, they're starting to look into it and research it. So you can see here whether where certain companies are at, where they're in a research phase, or they're maybe in a pilot phase, or maybe in development, or maybe they've already deployed it, right? They've already got blockchain ready to go. It's running. Okay, and you can see that a lot of the big companies that we all know, from Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, right, all Walmart, Verizon, Visa, they're all using blockchain in some way or form right now. Okay, and so the adoption is happening. It's going, and why? Because they recognize that they can move money faster, that it reduces fraud. Because think about a big business. I mean, how much money do they lose just to fraud alone? Right? It's one of those things where they're going, yeah, okay, I can raise my stock price if I could prove that I'm reducing fraud thanks to blockchain. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It lower cost, right? It can work 24/7. They can settle transactions instantly. So it's happening. It's happening all across the industry, all across the world, and it's just a big snowball that's going to take over. So, for an example, before sending money would take days, maybe, but now sending money on the blockchain, it can happen in minutes or seconds, right? And it doesn't matter the amount. It could be $1 million being sent in literally seconds, thanks to cryptocurrency. It's just really, really cool. So these big institutions, they don't care about memes, right? We talk about meme coins, and there's all these coins that get launched, and and people make fun of it because it's funny money. But no, what they're interested in is true infrastructure, real payments, real record keeping, real ownership systems. In other words, utility, right? So the coin, the blockchain that have real utility tied to them, that actually have real benefits tied to them, not just a speculation of, oh, that's a new coin that just came out. I wonder if it's going to go up and down in value. No, they're looking at the infrastructure behind it all. And if that blockchain, like a layer one blockchain, right, that actually brings real utility, that's a gold mine. And we get to be part of that. So Web3 really does give us the chance to make the world a better place. The financial world has traditionally been a space dominated by those that have access to wealth, right? Accredited investors and so on. But for the unbanked and the underbanked, it's always been out of reach. So thanks to the technology of blockchain and the accessibility of mobile, right? Like pretty much everybody, even in third world countries, they all have phones now, smartphones. Okay. So mobile and online platforms, all the barriers to entry are being removed. This is creating unprecedented opportunity for those that have been historically locked out. Global financial decentralization via blockchain, coupled with digital currencies and tokenized real world assets, it's now offering a new world of financial egalitarianism. Okay. We're making it an even playing field for everybody. Doesn't matter where you're from, how much money you have. It's really cool. So this has a positive social impact, of course, right? Asking the question, could a hotel construction in North America be sustainably funded by a worker from Nicaragua, maybe? Or a taxi driver from New York, or a young family from South Africa, and millions of others like them? Yes, now that's made accessible to everybody. Can those people become owners of the physical asset and receive income and capital appreciation, even though they live on another continent? Yeah, they can. Wow. Can they do it with just pennies and dimes, or perhaps a dollar or two from the convenience of their smartphone? Yes, they can. The world is changing in favor of a new egalitarian model, despite the concentration of wealth in the top few percent of world population. Even in the United States, we all know this, more than 180 million adults just live paycheck to paycheck, right? So decentralization eliminates the need for intermediaries and allows everyone to participate directly with the financial ecosystem. So real world examples, right? We're talking about RWAs, real world assets, such as real estate. It could be physical and digital infrastructure projects or material goods. It can all be tokenized, allowing individuals to purchase a small portion of these assets. For example, somebody in South America could, or just in a village, right? Small village, they could invest as little as $2 in a tokenized apartment block in West Africa or a five-star hotel in Malta. Think about that. How amazing is that? A basket weaver in Nigeria can own a micro node for $10 a month and receive 20 tokens per day, which potentially could be enough to feed her family for the week, right? This is the kind of stuff we're talking about, where it can be life-changing all across the world. One of the most revolutionary aspects of this whole financial paradigm is the very low cost of entry. Loose change, often disregarded by those even in the lowest socioeconomic strata, can now be leveraged to build a portfolio. Digital currencies with values of less than a cent can be purchased, or in some ecosystems earned as rewards, right? Enabling individuals to take their first steps into this Web3 world. So this accessibility transforms the narrative from surviving on the margins to actually participating and actively growing wealth. Is really cool. So there is a future of hope with Web3. Okay, we're now able, as Mahin Sajjad said, banking the unbanked one block at a time. That's what Web3 is, right? Decentralization and tokenization are not just technological advancements, they're tools of empowerment. By lowering costs, ensuring security, providing accessible, education-driven opportunities. These innovations are democratizing the financial world. So for the unbanked, the underbanked, the underserved, and all who are generally excluded from large sale participation, this means breaking free from the cycles of poverty and exclusion to embrace a mindset of growth and contribution. And so as the global ecosystem expands, they offer a future where everyone, regardless of their socioeconomic status, has a chance to own, be rewarded, and thrive. So why Noti and Cirrus? Well, number one, unlike all other blockchain and Web3 projects available today, which offer nodes for around $1,000 to $2,000, Cirrus is the only one that offers nodes for $600, $300, or even as little as $100. We made it available to everybody. Second, Cirrus is the only project that offers micronodes as SaaS products, so people can participate for as little as $10 per month to earn daily rewards. Number three, Cirrus is the only project that allows people to leverage the power of team building through a relationship marketing model, right? How cool is that? Number four, Cirrus is the only project that is tokenizing everyday stuff, not pie in the sky things like oil, gold, real estate, stocks, etc. Right? I mean, those are good, and those blockchain projects are fine for those that want to be part of them. But actual services that the masses use on a daily basis, like cloud storage, conferencing, travel, shopping, communications, telemedicine, and more, these kind of things help everybody, right? And where everybody can now participate. And number five, Cirrus is the only project that has a realistic path forward for every demographic and socioeconomic situation of people we know and care about all across the world. So every time, think about this, every time we pay our $10 per month SAFE subscription, a little piece of that goes to lift up the economy of a struggling family somewhere in the world. It is a true win-win-win situation for all of us. So that's why we're so excited. That's why I am here. And so, wow, I'm so passionate about what we're doing with Noti and Cirrus. It really is something that's going to bless the world. So with that, any comments, final thoughts, Steve?
Man, I need that notebook you were talking about, because I feel like I just had a history lesson, and it's always exciting. And I was just thinking, as you were talking, I thought, you know, there were very few people who really understood who Alexander Hamilton was. And yet, if you did your history notes, you'd go back and found out that he was the first director of the United States Treasury that was founded in 1789, so it could take care of the finances of the United States. It was the first decision made for the country. And what you're talking about are decisions that we're in front of, Jeremy. We always talk about, oh, I wish I could have bought the land that the mall was on before it happened. We're kind of in that pioneer economy with what we're doing right now. And so that history lesson I loved. I was going, oh, okay, let me look closer at that. I know people that have an iPhone, you're probably having a difficulty seeing the screen, you know, but if you get a chance, go back and watch the rebroadcast of this on a computer so you can see the graphics that Jeremy spent so much time and energy on, which very few people are willing to do. So 10:30, right on the nose, Jeremy. You did good, brother. I tell you, I love it. You're going to get one of those. You remember how teachers in primary school, they give you a star on your page when you do? You got a star, brother. You got a star. So anyway, that was great.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll let you get back to your Saturdays, and stay tuned because good things are coming.